We're going back more than a century, to the very beginning of cinema. 8 early sci-fi films, the first filmmakers, the first special effects, and more than one trip to the moon. Let's take a look. At the very end of the 19th century, Georges Méliès filmed The Astronomer's Dream. It's a short, surreal story about an astronomer's dream, filled with visions of stars, planets, and the moon itself. When it was reissued in America, it was renamed A Trip to the Moon. But don't confuse it with the 1902 film of the same name, also directed by Méliès. We'll get to that one soon. Méliès reworked a stage illusion he had first performed years earlier at his Paris Magic Theatre. That live version, called The Farces of the Moon, used mechanical sets, puppetry, and bursts of pyrotechnics, all of which he recreated for the screen with early cinematic trickery. The moon's enormous face was a giant puppet, and the transformations were achieved through stop-camera edits and substitution splices. Phoebe, the goddess of the moon, was played by Johanna Dalsy, Méliès's longtime collaborator and, many years later, his wife. It's not a perfect film, but it's one of Méliès's funniest, inspiring dozens of early imitators who tried to capture the same magic. 1902, A Trip to the Moon. You probably know this one already. It's easily the most famous film on this list. Directed, produced, and written by Méliès, it was inspired by Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon and H.G. Wells's The First Men in the Moon. The film follows a group of astronomers who travel to the moon, fight the Selenites, and return to Earth. At around 13 minutes, it was the longest and most expensive production of its time, made at Méliès Montreuil studio with painted sets, pyrotechnics, and hand-colored prints. It became an international success, though it was pirated in the United States by Thomas Edison's company. Over time, however, the film slipped into obscurity. After Méliès's financial collapse, most of his work was lost. In 1917, the French army melted down reels to extract silver. Others were sold off as scrap, and Méliès himself burned the remaining negatives in 1923. By the mid-1920s, he was selling toys at the Gare Montparnasse. But A Trip to the Moon survived. Rediscovered in the 1930s, it was later reconstructed in 1997 by a foundation set up by his family, with a fully restored color version premiering in 2011, more than a century after its debut. We're still in France, and still with Georges Méliès, this time for The Impossible Voyage. Released in 1904, it was inspired by Jules Verne and Adolphe Dennery's play, Journey Through the Impossible. Like A Trip to the Moon, it blends science and fantasy, following a group of overconfident explorers who attempt a journey to the sun. The film ran longer, nearly 20 minutes, and cost even more to produce. Once again, Méliès used cutting-edge sets and effects for the time, with rolling scenery, miniatures, and pyrotechnics. Nevertheless, it still relies on his signature fairy tale style, with flat-painted backdrops and mechanical props that create an alternate reality straight out of a storybook. This was the peak of Méliès's career, grand, ambitious, and imaginative. But you can already sense him beginning to repeat himself, something that would later contribute to his decline as a filmmaker. Made in 1905, it was one of the first films through which Pathé Frères, France's leading film studio at the time, tried to cash in on the moon madness. Directed by Ferdinand Zecca and Gaston Velle, the film tells the story of a drunkard who dreams he's taken to the moon. Bottles come to life, rooftops spin, and the moon itself swallows and spits him back out before he wakes up in shock. The film is composed of 14 shots and contains no intertitles. And yes, it's hard not to notice that the double exposures look rough, but the practical effects and painted sets still work beautifully. Now we move to Britain with The Motorist, a 1906 silent comedy directed by Walter R. Booth. It follows a couple chased by a policeman after a traffic violation, but instead of stopping, they drive straight up the side of a building, soar past the clouds, and even circle the rings of Saturn. It's a perfect example of early British trick cinema. Short, playful, and surprisingly funny, its dry humor and quick pacing still work today. And come on, it's only 3 minutes long, absolutely worth it. The Electric Hotel was made in 1908 by Segundo de Chomón, a Spanish-born filmmaker working for Pathé Frères. It uses stop-motion animation with live actors, a technique known as pixelation, to tell the story of a couple checking into a futuristic hotel where everything runs on electricity. Suitcases unpack themselves, clothes fold and hang, hair braids on its own, until the man operating the system gets drunk and chaos breaks loose. If Georges Méliès dominated early fantasy cinema up to 1906, Chomón took over from 1907 to 1911. He was more versatile, experimenting with animation, color, and mechanical effects. And The Electric Hotel shows just how refined his craft had become. In 1908, Pathé Frères commissioned Segundo de Chomón to create what was essentially a remake of A Trip to the Moon. The result, An Excursion to the Moon, is a shorter, and in some ways more polished, version of Méliès's classic. The film follows the same story. A group of astronomers travels to the moon, encounters its inhabitants, and returns to Earth. But there are notable differences. The capsule lands in the moon's mouth instead of its eye. The Selenites vanish at will instead of being struck by umbrellas. And one of them, a dancing moon maiden, comes back to Earth to marry an astronomer. Out of its 180 meters, about 72 were colorized using Pathé's stencil tinting process. Made in 1909, The Invisible Thief was one of the earliest films inspired by H.G. Wells's The Invisible Man. A man finds Wells's book in a shop, discovers the formula for invisibility, and uses it to rob a hotel and unsuspecting passers-by before escaping the police. At just 5 minutes long, the film delivers stunning early special effects. Objects pack themselves into bags, furniture moves on its own, and in one remarkable shot, the thief removes his clothes and simply vanishes. The same trick would later be perfected in 1933's The Invisible Man. But this film did it first, 24 years earlier.